Moving to Houston sounds pretty exciting until you hear the one thing they don't tell you about. Before you start packing your bags, listen to this. Hi, my name is Brandon Snyder. I am a residential real estate team leader in the greater Houston area. Alongside my wife, Mary, we serve clients just like you moving to the greater Houston area. And all we do is give you the lowdown on everything you need to know about moving to Houston. I'm not a Giants fan just because I woke up one day like this. I am a California transplant, and I have learned the ins and outs of Houston, and I'm going to share some of those with you today. There's a big myth that moving to Houston is like moving to any other city across the country. The reality is that's not the case. Most people think when they move to Houston, they're moving into the city, everything's next to each other. And the reality is that Houston is an hour away from Houston. When I moved here, I did not realize how massive Houston was and how long it took to get from one place to the other. Now, I was used to traffic growing up in the Bay Area. We drove for hours just to get 20 miles. It was crazy. It's not quite like that here, but you do need to know that Houston is a metro city with plenty of suburbs. So locking down your area and where you're going to move to might be one of the biggest decisions you have to make. And our team is definitely there to help you do that. But keep in mind that it does get pretty hectic out there with how many suburbs and areas basically within an hour and a half of Houston that just have so much going on, and definitely something you need to keep in mind. The second thing you probably need to know is that we have property taxes here that are kind of unrivaled across the country. You may hear that home prices are lower and that's amazing and it's going to mean that your payments are less. Most of the time, our California residents actually say that when they move here, payment's pretty similar. And that's because of property taxes. There are taxes that get hit on the property for all kinds of different things. Think school district, water district, among some of the other things that come in for taxes. But some of your newer communities, these shiny new builds that you see, and you see these low prices, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. That's a great deal. A lot of the times, that payment's still pretty high because the tax rate's in the 3.5 range. When I bought my house in 2021, my tax range was 3.69. It's now closer to 3. As people move into the neighborhoods, it definitely goes down. So something to keep in mind there. But tax rates can definitely affect your payment and make it almost unaffordable to live in certain parts of Houston. Now, when we're talking about the older parts of Houston, inside the loop and things like that, the actual city of Houston, it's a lot cheaper. Tax rates are lower. But when we're talking about suburbs, think like Katy, Cypress, Conroe, you're going to deal with higher tax rates in some of these newer communities because they're spending money to go put in the infrastructure, and therefore they're kind of deferring that down to the homeowners. Y'all, I love sunshine. I came from the Sunshine State. I don't even know if that's Florida or California. I've been to both. I can tell you they're both sun. What I can tell you about Houston is that our weather is crazy, but it's bearable. Everyone has AC here. Be prepared for hot summers, cold winters. Be prepared for just, run of the mill hurricanes that come in. It's something that's really big about buying a house out here is that paying attention to flood zones matters 100%. I can tell you that those change year in, year out. They can be changed. You can not be in a flood zone at one point and then get moved into one. It's less likely to happen, but it does happen. More importantly, when you're buying a home, you need to make sure that you're paying attention where the flood zone is because, like we saw with Harvey, when Hurricane Harvey hit, there were homes that weren't in a flood zone that were completely underwater. That was a once in a lifetime catastrophe. We've been through a hurricane and a derecho since. Haven't really had the crazy amount of damage. We've been without power. Definitely something to consider there. So generators are a plus. See a lot of home builders out here giving away generators with purchase of a home. If you were going to buy a resale home, that may be something you need to consider is having a generator. Now, the generator isn't just for hurricanes. The other thing that I would pay attention to with these generators is when it gets cold. Now, 2021, we had a huge freeze. We had no power. This was partially due to the electrical grid and the electrical grid not being connected. Texas was its own independent thing for a while there. I won't even get into that. That was crazy. I'm glad we're part of the main grid now. We didn't have power for days. Luckily, people who had gas were able to cook things that they need, etc. Have their fires going because it was freezing. It was below freezing. But the reality is that a generator will definitely help you. Solar panels aren't as good as you thought here, so just keep that in mind that a generator is always going to be your best bet in that regards. Now, the one thing they don't really tell you about with the weather here is that it can change from day to day. Today, it's 60 degrees. It's windy. It's going to rain tomorrow. It may be torrential for 10 minutes and then it'll be sunny again. The weather here is very unpredictable. I think that's the main thing that I would tell people moving to Texas. You need to pay attention to that. Please pay attention to the weather and how that's going to affect your move. If you're used to 70 degrees and sunny and you don't have AC in your home right now, you're in for a shock here. So just keep that in mind. The fourth thing I'll tell you, everyone's so welcoming here. This is the welcome factor. When I moved here, everyone was so polite, so friendly. It was yes, sir, yes, ma'am, bless your heart. Now, for those of you who live in the South, that's derogatory, but very, very friendly, very welcoming. The food here is incredible. We have a huge array of cultures and foods out here. We have such friendly people out here. We have block parties. All of these communities are getting together. They're going and doing things. When you think of wanting to have that sense of community and belonging, Texas has it, especially the greater Houston area. Everywhere I go, everyone's super friendly, very nice, very welcoming. It just creates this sense of belonging and welcome that you just can't get in a lot of other places. Now, I will tell you that depending on how far rural you go, you may not get as much of that because you're not in these big communities where they're doing events every weekend and the kids are getting together for soccer practice and other things like that. They're just something to think. I do live about 45 minutes out of Houston. My community is doing something every quarter. We got, trick-or-treaters are going to be here on Halloween. The whole neighborhood gets involved. A lot of these big master plan communities, think Cypress, we have Bridgeland out there that's continuing to grow, Town Lakes over there. In the Woodlands, you have Wood Forest. You have all these communities at Jubilee and Hockley. They're going to be doing these events regularly to get the community involved. There's always something going on. So keep that in mind. If you're wanting to move here, think about moving to an area that has these amenities that work for your family. Or if you want to be out in the middle of nowhere and be left alone, we have that too out. If you're moving to Houston and you want a complete understanding of prices, school districts, areas to move, the best restaurants, go ahead and click that subscribe button. We go over stuff like this all the time, and we help families just like you who are looking to make a move to the area, whether you're renting, buying, or even investing in the area. We can show you the areas to move to, the places that you'll want to go regularly. Your new favorite food spot will be there, I promise you. We have a ton of food recommendations as well. If you want to know any more about any of the topics we covered or anything further, feel free to reach out to us below. We will get in touch with you and talk to you about serving your family in your move.